welcome back to another episode of A Little Bit of Genius, the podcast run by Anglia Education students. My name's Ella, and I'm a grade 11 student at Collège du Léman.
And I'm Anthony, a grade 10 student at Collège du Léman.
As keen sailors ourselves, we are delighted today to be joined by Santiago Lange, an Argentinian world champion sailor who won the Olympic gold in 2016. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you today, guys.
So the first thing we'd love to ask you is, for the viewers, what are 3 things that you think they should know about sailing?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Sailing is a fantastic sport. It has tremendous values. It gives you the possibility to discover the world. You know, the 70%, if I don't know exactly, but it's oceans. So we are very privileged to be able to ride that garden of our planet. We have the same as any other sports that we compete against an opposition, but we also play with the nature. The weather system, the wind, the sea, the waves, the currents are very unique and they do whatever they want with you. We learn a lot through the nature to accept whatever the nature brings us. So I think all in all is a magnificent sport.
So I started sailing a couple years ago, but when did you start?
I started sailing when I was 6 years old. My father was a sailor. Actually, he also went to the Olympics in Helsinki. But we learned it the good way of, enjoying playing with a boat. So the same way as a young kid in a city will play with a bicycle. When we were 8 years old, we were sleeping on the boats of the club and spending all our time in the boat. And then through that, then we learned how to compete. And I think it's a really extremely good learning process. I see so many times nowadays that the sportive structures are so big and so good quality that sometimes they forget about the sense of the sport and they go straight into competition. And, people forget that why we do things.
So your father was a sailor. You are obviously a sailor. So how do you feel about your sons following in your footsteps?
It is very cool. It was something that will stay in my heart and in my mind will always be to have the privilege to enter an Olympic stadium with my sons, And I think that's an enormous privilege. I never dream about it. As an athlete, you always dream to win here or there, certain tournaments, but to enter an Olympic stadium with my sons and was such a special feeling.
So what was your favorite regatta and why? And for the viewers, a regatta is a sailing race.
And I must say the Olympic Games in Rio. No? I always dreamed to win the Olympic Games. It was a long road. My first try to go to an Olympic Games was in 1980. And then was a phase that was trying to get to be able to compete against the good countries. We won medals, but never the gold. And then the gold came in 2016. So 36 years later. So obviously I have to name that regatta.
And if you feel comfortable talking about this, you won the gold after winning your battle with cancer. So how was the recovery process? How was training again after such an event?
No, not a problem, Ella, to talk about it at all. I was lucky enough to be educated as a person in sailing. We play with the nature and that gives us an education of acceptance. It's something we are not able to control. And so I think I was lucky enough to have cancer being educated as an athlete, that you obviously, when you are an athlete or a sportsman, you train for adversity, you train to overtake barriers. And also I was lucky enough that I had such an enormous focus to get prepared well for the Olympics in Rio. When I took the decision to go for surgery, I was only thinking on Rio. And that was such a big drive, such a big motivation, that now looking backwards, I was not realizing what I was going through. I think that all the process was just crazy. I cannot better use the word crazy.
So of course, for races, we go all around the world. You sleep on the boat, you live on the boat. What's the sort of resilience that gets you through? What do you think about when you're on the boat? You've been there for days. What is your end goal?
The cool thing about the ocean racing is that you are competing 24 hours. The maximum I've been on the sea was 37 days. So basically, you love competing. And then you have the chance to compete for 37 days, 24 hours. You sleep and you wake up and the first question will be, how are we doing? You are in the environment that you love, that is to be in the sea. You are expecting different things to happen, and everything is new every day. Every day will be different. So many things that happens are so cool. You are living your dream in a certain way because you're there at full speed, taking risk. So many emotions going on, even if you are focused. But when you look backwards, so much going on. It's such a good competition.
So, what is one thing that you would have wanted to know before you started sailing?
It's a hard question. It's a very good question and hard to answer. I guess reading the wind. I think in our sport, reading the wind is an art. The rest of it, you can learn it, or feeling the boat as well. So I imagine if you are the best in the world reading the wind, you will win a lot of racing.
What is the hardest part of sailing, in your opinion? Doesn't have to be like technical, just mentally or in your life. What's the hardest part of sailing as a sport?
Can I change it to the hardest and more fascinating? I think I find sailing fascinating because it has so many variables. You have the variable of the boat itself, how we trim the boat, how the boat is designed, the design of the sail, the mast. And then you put on that the up and downs of the wind, and it's such a complex sport and with so many variables. It's difficult to see it when you see a movie of a race. Seems like everything very calm and very easy, but technically and mentally, because it's a very mental sport as well. You need to be patient in the light airs. You need to be really aggressive in the strong breeze. I think the hardest then will be the amount of variables that you have to deal with.
You sail mostly in the sea when you do regattas, but I'm guessing you've sailed in the river too. So what's this difference there?
First of all, when you go from sweet water to salt water, the boat feels slightly different. In the salt water, it floats a little bit more, so it tends to be quicker and more reactive. In the river plate where I sail is sweet water and brown and kind of dense water. And the river is shallow. That makes the waves really choppy. So when it gets windy, it's really hard to sail because the boat feels like stuck. The wind also, when it changes conditions, directions and intensity, makes you really challenging. And in Buenos Aires, we have a lot of those type of winds.
You're listening to A Little Bit of Genius. In this episode, our student hosts are interviewing Santiago Lange, the world champion sailor who won gold at the 2016 Olympics. Across this series, our students and their guests are exploring the resilience needed to be successful in any career. Subscribe now so you never miss an episode.
Of course, you've been on the boat your whole life, but do you have your fondest memory, your fondest anecdote, something you remember that was your favorite moment on the boat?
I have so many stories that happen floating on a boat, but I lived with my 4 sons for 4 years on a boat. Imagine I lived with my 4 sons in a boat and went to school from the boat and back, was, studying the boat. And then on the weekends, we would go and travel around the Delta in the outside of Buenos Aires. So I see a boat as home. So whatever experience a normal person have at home, I am used to have it in a boat.
Living in a boat for 4 years, that sounds like a lot. So do you miss it now that you're sort of living on land?
Yes. I always think, why I don't go back again to it, and it's so cool because you live so simple. There is no room to have many things. All what is written in the books about simplicity, living light, exactly that is what you experience. If you ask any of my 4 sons which is the best time we live as a family, they will call it for sure living on the boat.
So for a more lighthearted question, you of course spend so much time on the boat, and in those long races where you're on the boat for days on end, what's your favorite thing to bring to eat? What do you...
I would have to answer a banana. I take a lot of care of what I eat on the water, or making sure I eat something every 30 minutes. So our coach will bring dry food or bars or cereals or gels, all sorts, and very simple to eat and to have energy is a banana for sure.
What's your favorite boat to sail on? Or what's the favorite boat that you have ever sailed on?
I love every single boat. Everything has a characteristic that I love of, but today I'm hooked into foiling. Foiling above the water is such an amazing feeling. and it's new to our sport. And I learn it every day. We learn, the engineers and us, we learn of it every day. So I have to take foiling right now.
In Argentina, you said it was hard to go to the Olympics, but now you've been 6 times representing your country. So how does it feel to do that?
I love it. And to represent my little world that is Argentina in the Olympics is something very, very special, a big honor to me to be able to represent our traditions, our way of thinking, our culture. But then I would like to all of us to be united. I don't think there is any other event in the world that shows the peace so much as the open ceremony of the Olympic Games. Not very long ago, I realized that I really identify with the Olympic values, which are friendship, excellence, and respect. I love my friends, are very important in my life, my family. I love respect for everything, for myself and to the others, respect for nature and to respect to what I do. And all that's mixed together with excellence. I love to do the best I can in whatever thing I do.
Yes. So you've achieved so many things, but is there another goal that you haven't achieved yet that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, it's a daily goal to be happy and to enjoy life at the end of the day, and luckily enough, I realize that makes me happy to still practice our sport at this level, that every time I launch the boat, I love it. So the focus is the process and the methodology of how we do things is the most important, and we need to try to push our limits to get better.
So how do you really train, or how harsh is your training?
We sail normally 3 hours to 4 hours a day. I personally sail 300 days a year. And then it takes us 1 hour at least to rig the boat and 1 hour to put it back together. And then normally per day, we have 4 or 5 meetings, either to prepare the day or to analyze the day afterwards in terms of technical matters. So basically our day is full on from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. Is very, very intense.
So I'm guessing you're training for the Olympics now too. Of course, Tokyo 2020 was pushed back. So how has COVID and this whole thing affected your life? I have family in Argentina, and I know that quarantine has been lasting a long time. How has COVID affected you?
I think there is many lessons to be learned. It's a lot to be learned out of COVID. Obviously, I rather had the games in, already in August, but 1 year, at my age, is not easy to stay in this high performance. But we are happy where we are now. We are having a very good training program. Also, we are very sensitive what's going on in Argentina and all over the world. I don't want to separate the hard part of all this and being privileged enough to keep practicing our sport and doing every day what we love.
Yeah, and like you talked about previously, the sport is changing all the time, and younger sailors are experiencing completely different things that you must have experienced when you were young. So where do you see the future of the sport going?
I would love to see the sport to simplify it as much as possible, to be more accessible to more people, to be shown to the people in a better way, because I want more people to enjoy this wonderful sport. But at the moment, sometimes it's difficult because it's a challenging sport. I guess it's a lot easier to play some more simple sports, but it has this barrier, but it also has so many rewards. So I would like the sport to really work on being more accessible and simpler for normal people to get on a boat. Also, I was about to forget it, but it's cool to mention. I love the opportunity life is giving me to compete against young people. For Tokyo, I think most of my oppositions are under 25. There's many of them that are sons of my friends. And that's a huge inspiration because it opened my mind. Every time I say to myself, no, that we did it differently and this was better, I say, I'm sure I was wrong. And so I try to open my mind to say why these kids are thinking differently and why they do it like this, and try to accept it and understand it.
That's very cool.
If you had to sail anywhere in the world with only one person, with who would you do it and where?
Wow, that's a good person. I wish I fall in love and sail with my wife and enjoy life together.
That's lovely.
Just one more question from me. What is your biggest hope for the future? What would you like to do when you get older?
I think of that quite often now because I know I am at the end of my career that absorbs a lot of my energy. I would love to help my country, which I don't like where is it. But sometimes every time I think how to do it, I feel tangled in politics, which I am not a specialist. And I don't want to get involved in that in a certain way. I want to execute things and change whatever I am good at. So I want to give back to the Olympic family what the Olympics have gave me. So it's a lot of options. I need to pick the right one.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. It's been really interesting.
Thank you. I wish you all the very best in sailing and in your own life. Hopefully, we cross by and meet each other in person somewhere in the world.
That's all the time we have on today's episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to find out more about North Anglia Education, head to www.northangliaeducation.com.
Thanks again for listening and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.